They never tell you this part. They teach you how to be good. But they never teach you how the world actually works from the moment you're young. You're given a script that sounds noble, a script that sounds fair, a script that sounds safe where they tell you, be honest, work hard, be patient, be kind, do the right thing, and things will work out. And for a long time, you believe it because you wanted to believe it. Not because it's true, but because believing it feels comforting. It gives meaning to struggle. It makes suffering feel temporary. It promises that somewhere, somehow, justice is waiting. But then something happens, not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. You do everything right and still lose. You stay loyal and get replaced. You stay patient and get ignored. You stay honest and get punished for it. And the worst part, nobody explains why. They just look at you and say, life isn't fair. But that answer never satisfies you, because deep down, you know something else is happening. This is the moment where most men break. Not externally, internally. This is where confusion begins, because the rules you followed didn't protect you. And when rules fail, reality starts leaking through the cracks. Slight pause. Here's the first uncomfortable truth. Good men don't lose because they are weak. They lose because they misunderstand human nature, and that misunderstanding is expensive. You were raised to believe the world rewards morality, but the world doesn't run on morality. It runs on perception, leverage, and power. Morality is talked about. Power is acted on. This is where Machiavelli enters the conversation, not as a villain, not as a cynic, but as a man who observed reality without lying to himself. Machiavelli didn't ask, how should people behave? He asked, how do they actually behave when it matters? And what he saw terrified people, because it shattered the fantasy. Here's the lie good men believe. They believe intention matters more than outcome. They believe effort earns respect. They believe being good guarantees protection. They believe fairness is built into the system. None of that is true. Outcomes matter. Perception matters. Strength matters. And the system does not protect those who refuse to understand it. Let me make this clear. This is not about becoming evil. This is not about hurting others. This is not about manipulation. This is about waking up. Because the world silently punishes men who stay asleep. Most good men are raised to suppress something critical. Instinct. They're taught to ignore it, to override it with politeness, to doubt it in favor of social approval. And that creates a dangerous gap. A gap between what they feel and what they allow themselves to act on. That gap is where exploitation lives. Think about it. How many times did you sense disrespect, but brushed it off to keep peace? How many times did you feel boundaries being crossed, but stayed silent to be mature? How many times did you notice manipulation, but ignored it because you didn't want drama? Every time you did that, you taught people something not about them, about you. You taught them what you tolerate. And tolerance without boundaries is permission. Here's another truth most men don't want to hear. The world doesn't reward goodness. It rewards clarity and consequence. If someone disrespects you and nothing happens, you just taught them it's safe. If someone exploits your kindness and you stay silent, you just normalized it. This is not cruelty. This is cause and effect. Good men often confuse being kind with being harmless. They think being non-threatening makes them trustworthy. In reality, it makes them invisible, or worse, convenient. Because people don't respect what cannot push back. They might like it, they might praise it, but they won't follow it, and they definitely won't protect it. Machiavelli observed something brutal but accurate. People support virtue when it costs them nothing. The moment it costs them something, they choose self-interest. This is why good men are shocked by betrayal. They assumed shared values were enough. They weren't. The world is not divided into good people and bad people. It's divided into aware and unaware. The unaware man believes behavior matches words. The aware man watches patterns. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. When was the last time someone said they respected you, but their behavior didn't change? When was the last time someone promised loyalty, but disappeared when it became inconvenient? Words are cheap. Behavior is expensive. Machiavelli trusted only what was expensive. This is why good men always lose at first, because they play a game they don't understand. Against people who do dot, and ignorance is not neutral dot, it is a disadvantage. Here's the moment everything changes dot, it's usually late at night dot, no noise, no distractions, just you. And the question you can't avoid anymore: why does doing the right thing keep costing me? That question is dangerous dot, because once you ask it honestly, you can't unsee the answer. The answer is this: the world doesn't reward goodness dot, it rewards strength wrapped in control. And control begins with awareness. Awareness hurts because it forces you to confront a painful truth. You weren't unlucky. You weren't cursed. You were unprepared. Not stupid dot, not weak dot, unaware dot. Most men avoid this realization dot because it destroys comfort dot. Comfort says, just wait, things will change. Awareness says, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And that puts responsibility back on you. This is why most men turn away here. They choose bitterness instead of discipline dot. They complain. They blame. They mock the system, but they never study it. Machiavelli studied it, and what he learned was simple. People don't follow morality. They follow certainty. They don't reward effort. They reward results. They don't protect kindness. They test it. This doesn't make the world evil dot, it makes it predictable. And predictability is power. If this makes you uncomfortable, good. That discomfort means the illusion is cracking dot, because illusions feel warm. Truth feels cold dot, but truth keeps you alive dot. This is only the beginning dot. In the next part, you'll understand why kindness without boundaries is exploited, and why patience, loyalty, and honesty become liabilities when they're not backed by strength. This is not motivation. This is awakening dot, and once you see clearly, there's no going back. You start noticing something strange after a while. The men who play fair wait their turn, follow rules. They don't rise. They stall. They get ignored. They get replaced dot, and no one explains why dot, because the truth is uncomfortable. Good men don't lose because they are weak. They lose because the world does not reward goodness the way they were taught. That lesson comes late, usually after betrayal, after being overlooked, after doing everything right and still ending up empty-handed. This is where confusion begins. You ask yourself questions that keep you awake. What did I do wrong? Why him and not me? Why did honesty cost me respect instead of earning it? And slowly, painfully, you realize something no one warned you about. The world doesn't punish evil first. It punishes naivety. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He saw men destroyed not because they lacked virtue, but because they trusted it blindly. Goodness without awareness is not strength, it's exposure. The world is not designed to protect the sincere. It is designed to test them, and most fail that test because they confuse morality with leverage. They believe being right will save them. They believe intentions matter more than outcomes. They believe effort guarantees reward. Those beliefs feel comforting, but comfort is not reality. Reality is colder. People don't follow who is right. They follow who is certain. They don't respect who is kind. They respect who is unshakable. They don't reward sacrifice. They reward position, and position is never given to the unaware. This is why good men keep explaining themselves. They think clarity will fix disrespect, but explanation signals uncertainty. It says, I need you to understand me. Power never needs to be understood. It is felt. Good men also forgive too quickly. They call it maturity. They call it peace. But what it really teaches others is this: there's no cost to crossing me. Machiavelli warned about this exact mistake. Men are not corrupted by cruelty alone. They are corrupted by consequences. If there is no consequence, behavior repeats. This is why good men attract disrespect, not because people are evil, but because human nature tests boundaries. Always. And if you don't defend yours, someone will use them. This is where the illusion breaks. You realize morality without boundaries is an invitation. An invitation to be ignored, to be delayed, to be used. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. You start noticing patterns everywhere. The man who speaks calmly but never explains gets listened to. The man who raises his voice trying to be understood gets dismissed. The man who can walk away controls the room. The man who needs approval becomes predictable. Good men are often raised to need approval from parents, from teachers, from society. They learn that being liked is Safety. But safety is not power. And power is what decides outcomes. This doesn't mean becoming cruel. That's where most misunderstand Machiavelli. He didn't teach men to be evil. He taught men to stop being blind. He understood that people judge with their eyes, not their hands. Appearances matter more than intentions. This is why confidence beats truth, why certainty beats honesty, why silence beats explanation. And when a good man doesn't understand this, he keeps losing battles he didn't even know he was in. He thinks life is unfair. But life isn't unfair. It's indifferent. It rewards what works and ignores what doesn't. This is the moment where paths split. Some men become bitter here. They start hating everyone. They isolate completely. They turn awareness into arrogance. That is not awakening. That is ego wearing pain. Other men do something far more dangerous. They adapt. They keep their values, but they upgrade their awareness. They stop leading with softness. They stop revealing intentions early. They stop trusting words over patterns. They learn to pause. Pause before reacting. Pause before forgiving. Pause before giving loyalty. Because loyalty given without proof is not virtue. It's vulnerability. This is where power starts forming quietly, not power over others. Power over self. The man who controls his reactions controls the interaction. The man who can remain calm under pressure becomes intimidating without trying. This is why good men must learn restraint, not suppression. Restraint. Feeling emotion without leaking it. Because leaked emotion becomes leverage. People pull on what they can. See anger, guilt, need, hope. And good men leak all for. They hope people will change. They hope honesty will be seen. They hope effort will be noticed. Hope keeps you passive. Machiavelli knew hope is a leash. Preparation is freedom. This is where transformation begins. You stop hoping to be understood and start positioning yourself to be respected. You stop explaining and start letting outcomes speak. You stop being reactive and become deliberate. This feels lonely at first because people preferred the old you, the predictable you, the forgiving you, the always available you. When that version disappears, they feel discomfort and they'll say you've changed. There, right. You have, and that change is necessary because good men don't lose due to goodness. They lose due to lack of awareness. And once awareness arrives, the game changes. Forever. There is a moment that changes everything. It doesn't feel powerful. It doesn't feel heroic. It feels quiet. It's the moment you stop asking, why do they treat me like this? And you start asking, how does this actually work? That question is dangerous. Because once you ask it honestly, you stop living in stories and you start seeing patterns. Most men never make this shift. They stay trapped inside explanations that protect their ego. I'm too nice. People are jealous. The world is unfair. Those thoughts feel safe. They also keep you weak. Awareness is different. Awareness does not comfort you. It confronts you. It shows you that many losses were not accidents. They were predictable outcomes. Not because you were wrong, but because you were unguarded. Machiavelli understood something men still resist today. People do not respond to who you are inside. They respond to what you project and what you can enforce. This is where good men struggle. They believe character should speak for itself, but character whispers. Presence speaks, and power shouts without sound. Once awareness wakes up, you begin noticing subtle shifts. You notice how people interrupt you less when you speak slower. You notice how silence carries more weight than explanations. You notice how confidence doesn't come from words, but from the ability to walk away. And slowly, painfully, you realize the man who needs the outcome the least controls the interaction. This flips everything you were taught. You were taught to care deeply, to invest emotionally, to show sincerity. But emotional investment without leverage creates dependency. And dependency is weakness. Awareness teaches you to detach from outcomes. Not because you don't care, but because caring too much makes you predictable. Predictability is easy to manipulate. The aware man becomes difficult to read. He still feels emotion. He just doesn't leak it. He still values people. He just doesn't give access freely. This is where awareness becomes dangerous. Because dangerous doesn't mean violent. It means uncontrollable. People can't rush you. They can't guilt you. They can't pressure you into decisions. You pause, and pausing kills. Manipulation. Most manipulation relies on speed. Decide now, don't overthink. Just trust me. The aware man slows everything down. He knows urgency is often fake. And fake urgency is fear wearing a mask. Fear is the oldest control tool in human history. Machiavelli knew this. Fear doesn't need threats. It needs uncertainty. Not knowing where you stand. Not knowing what comes next. This is why awareness changes how you respond. You stop filling silence. Silence forces others to reveal themselves. People talk when they're uncomfortable. They over-explain. They expose motives. The aware man listens. He watches who benefits, who pressures, who disappears. When leverage shifts, patterns become clear. And once patterns are clear, confusion disappears. Confusion is what drains most good men. They keep replaying moments in their head. What did I miss? What should I have said? Awareness ends that loop because you stop reacting to moments and start understanding structure. You see how power moves quietly, through perception, through positioning, through boundaries. The loudest man rarely has power. He wants attention. The calm man rarely explains. He already has position. This is why awareness feels heavy at first, because it removes comfort. You can't blame luck anymore. You can't blame ignorance. You can't hide behind good intentions. You see clearly, and clarity demands responsibility. Responsibility to change how you move. This is where many men fail. They see enough truth to feel angry, but not enough to become disciplined. They complain. They isolate. They turn awareness into bitterness. That is not power. That is resentment. True awareness does something quieter. It makes you selective. Selective with words. Selective with energy. Selective with trust. You stop announcing plans, because plans shared too early invite interference. You stop explaining decisions, because explanation invites negotiation. You stop reacting emotionally, because emotion gives others the steering wheel. This is not cruelty. It's precision. Machiavelli warned that a man who relies only on goodness will be destroyed among those who are not good. That warning wasn't cynical. It was protective. Goodness without awareness is fragile. Awareness strengthens goodness. It gives it armor. Now something interesting happens. People start treating you differently, not because you demand respect, but because you no longer chase it. You speak less. And when you speak, people listen. You don't rush to prove yourself. And suddenly, you don't need to. This is when awareness turns dangerous, because you can no longer be easily controlled. You can't be guilted into overgiving. You can't be rushed into bad deals. You can't be emotionally hijacked. You choose, and choice is power. This stage feels lonely, because you've stepped out of the crowd. You still stand among people, but you're no longer of them. They speak emotion. You hear intention. They speak promises. You watch behavior. This distance is the price, but it's also the filter. Only those aligned with reality remain. This is where awareness prepares you for the next phase, because awareness alone is not enough. Awareness without discipline creates sharp minds with weak control, and that is dangerous. In the wrong way, the next phase is where everything stabilizes. Where awareness becomes calm, where danger becomes control. That is where mastery begins. Most men think intelligence is power. It isn't. Intelligence without control is just noise. You've seen it before. Smart men who argue perfectly and still lose. Men who understand everything but can't hold a position. Men who know the truth yet get pushed around by emotion. The missing piece is discipline. Discipline is not punishment. It's protection. It protects your focus, your time, your reactions. And reactions are where most men are defeated. Good men lose because they react. They react to disrespect. They react to pressure. They react to guilt. They react to urgency. Reaction gives control away. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He knew that the man who can control himself cannot be controlled easily by others. Control starts internally, before status, before money, before influence. If you cannot delay a reaction, you cannot hold power. This is where discipline enters. Discipline teaches you to pause. Pause before responding. Pause before committing. Pause before explaining. That pause changes everything, because manipulation feeds on speed. Answer now. Decide. Quickly. Don't think too much. The disciplined man slows the world down. And when the world slows, patterns become visible. You begin to see how often pressure is artificial. Deadlines that don't matter. Emotional urgency with no real consequence. Threats that disappear when ignored. Discipline reveals bluff. This is why disciplined men feel intimidating without raising their voice. They don't rush to fill silence. Silence makes people uncomfortable. People reveal themselves. They talk too much. They explain too much. They leak intention. The disciplined man listens. He lets others expose leverage. This is not manipulation. It's observation. Good men are taught to respond immediately. To be polite. To be available. To be agreeable. Discipline breaks that conditioning. It teaches you to choose when to engage. Not every message deserves a reply. Not every challenge deserves a response. Not every emotion deserves expression. This restraint is mistaken for coldness. But it's clarity. Machiavelli believed patience was a form of power, because impatience reveals need. And need invites control. The man who needs approval will explain himself endlessly. The man who needs outcomes will compromise too early. The disciplined man needs less. And the man who needs less is harder to move. Discipline also changes how you handle emotion, not by killing it, by containing it. Anger informs you. Fear warns you. Desire motivates you, but none of them command you. Emotion is data, not orders. Most men let emotion drive behavior. That makes them predictable. Predictability is weakness. The disciplined man feels deeply and acts selectively. He does not vent to feel relief. He does not react to feel powerful. He acts when it matters. This makes him unreadable. And unreadable men are difficult to control. You begin to notice a shift. You stop over-explaining. You stop justifying boundaries. You stop apologizing for standards. Standards without enforcement are wishes. Discipline enforces standards quietly. By consistency. You show up the same way every time. You don't bend under pressure. You don't fold to emotion. People test this. They push boundaries. They provoke reactions. They apply guilt. This is where most men fail. They break discipline to keep peace. But peace built on self-betrayal always collapses. The disciplined man holds, not aggressively, not loudly. Firmly. And something interesting happens. People adjust. Some leave. Some respect. Some resent. All information. Discipline reveals who benefits from your lack of it. It also changes how you deal with loss. You stop chasing validation after setbacks. You stop explaining failures. You absorb impact and adapt. Adaptation is power. Machiavelli didn't admire brute force. He admired adaptability. Rigid men break. Flexible men survive. Discipline gives you flexibility without chaos. You control impulse, so you can pivot intelligently. This is where intelligence finally becomes useful. Without discipline, intelligence is reactive. With discipline, intelligence becomes strategic. Strategy is simply seeing further, because you are not emotionally hijacked. You begin to move differently. You plan quietly. You prepare privately. You execute cleanly. No announcements. No drama. Results speak. This is when respect starts to form. Not because you demand it, because people sense boundaries. They sense you won't be rushed. They sense you won't be guilted. They sense pressure won't bend you. Discipline creates gravity. People lean toward stability. Chaos repels. This is why calm men lead during crisis. Not because they are fearless, but because they are disciplined. They feel fear and don't obey it. The disciplined man also curates environment. He protects energy. He limits exposure to noise, to drama, to pointless conflict, because attention is currency. And wasted attention is theft. Good men often give attention freely. To complaints, to arguments, to people who add nothing. Discipline teaches you to withdraw attention. Withdrawal is power. When attention is removed, manipulation starves. This is why disciplined men feel hard to reach, not physically. Psychologically. They are present, but not available for nonsense. This frustrates people who rely on Access is leverage. And discipline controls access. You also notice something internal. Self-trust grows. Because you do what you say you will do. Small promises kept to yourself build internal authority. Internal authority creates external confidence, not loud confidence. Quiet certainty. Machiavelli knew this. People assume competence from composure. They follow calm. They submit to certainty. This is not dominance. It's alignment. The disciplined man doesn't chase influence. Influence orbits him because he doesn't leak desperation. Desperation is loud. Discipline is silent. Silence carries weight. This is the stage where many men get uncomfortable. Because discipline feels boring. No emotional highs, no dramatic releases, no constant stimulation, just consistency, day after day. Most men quit here. They crave excitement, validation, reaction. But discipline builds something deeper. Stability. And stability becomes authority under pressure. When chaos arrives, the disciplined man doesn't panic. Others react. He decides. That difference is everything. This is why discipline beats intelligence. Because intelligence argues. Discipline moves. Intelligence explains. Discipline acts. Intelligence sees problems. Discipline creates outcomes. But discipline has a danger. Without ethics, it becomes domination. That is the next test. Because a disciplined man without values becomes the very thing he once feared. The next phase decides who you become. Controller or stabilizer. That is where true mastery begins. There's a form of power that never announces itself. It doesn't argue. It doesn't explain. It doesn't need permission. It's quiet. And most men never learn it, because silence feels uncomfortable to those raised to please. Good men are taught to speak up, to clarify, to justify. They believe words will save them, but silence often does. More, Machiavelli understood this. He knew that the man who speaks less reveals less. And the man who reveals less is harder to control. Silence is not weakness. Silence is compression. It concentrates intent. Most people talk to release emotion. They speak to feel relief. They explain to feel understood. The disciplined man uses silence to observe. He lets others fill the space. And when people fill space, they reveal priorities, fears, and leverage. This is why silence creates discomfort. Discomfort makes people talk, and talk exposes truth. Good men fear silence because they think it looks like guilt, or indifference, or arrogance. But silence is neutral. It becomes powerful when paired with presence. Presence is not posture. It's not dominance. It's steadiness. Presence is the feeling people get when you don't need anything from them. No approval, no validation, no reaction. That absence of need is unsettling, because need creates predictability, and predictability is control. The man who needs approval will bend to keep it. The man who needs outcomes will rush to secure. Then the man who needs comfort will avoid truth. The man who needs nothing immediately controls the pace. This is invisible power. It doesn't force. It doesn't threaten. It waits. Waiting is terrifying. In a world built on urgency, most manipulation relies on speed, deadlines, pressure, emotion. Answer now, respond quickly, don't think. Silence kills urgency, because silence introduces uncertainty. And uncertainty flips control. Now the other person wonders, what is he thinking? Why isn't he reacting? Did I miscalculate? They begin negotiating with themselves. This is why calm men dominate tense rooms. Not because they speak louder, but because they don't. Machiavelli observed that men judge more with their eyes than their hands. Meaning, people believe what they see, not what they're told. Presence is visible. It's felt before it's explained. You've seen it. The man who enters quietly and changes the room. No announcements, no performance. Just stillness. That stillness signals something rare. Control. Not control over others. Control over self. Self-control is magnetic. People sense it immediately, because most people don't have it. They leak emotion. They telegraph need. They overshare intention. The silent man doesn't. And because he doesn't, people project onto him. They assume strength. They assume authority. They assume position. This is how invisible power forms, not by claiming it, but by creating space around yourself. Space where others can't read you. Space where pressure doesn't land. This is why silence must be paired with discipline. Silence without discipline looks empty. Silence with discipline feels heavy. The disciplined man doesn't go silent to punish others. He goes silent to gather information. He watches who panics, who overcompensates, who tries to regain control. Those reactions reveal everything. You learn who needs you, who fears losing access, who relied on your predictability. Good men often mistake clarity for honesty. They think explaining intentions builds trust. Sometimes it does. Often it just gives others a map to your limits, your fears, your values. Maps are used. Silence removes the map. Now people must guess. Guessing weakens leverage. This is why powerful men speak in short sentences. Not because they lack intelligence, but because they don't need to prove it. Over-explaining is a tell. It signals insecurity. The mastered man states, he doesn't convince. Convincing is for those without position. Presence doesn't persuade, it anchors. Anchors don't move. Everything else moves around them. This is why presence changes how people treat you. They interrupt you less. They negotiate more carefully. They test boundaries more subtly. Testing is respect in disguise. People only test boundaries they believe exist. And when they test, you learn where power sits. The silent man answers tests with consistency. Not emotion, not aggression. Consistency. That consistency becomes law, unspoken, but felt. This is how authority forms without force. Machiavelli warned that appearing self-sufficient creates power even before results arrive. Self-sufficiency signals safety. People follow safety, even when it's quiet. This is why leaders speak less in chaos. Because noise amplifies fear, calm compresses it. You begin to see how often words are used to control. Guilt, shame, urgency, morality. You should, a good person would. If you cared, these phrases push emotion. Silence refuses the push. The silent man doesn't argue morality emotionally. He lets outcomes speak. Outcomes never lie. This frustrates manipulators, because manipulation needs reaction. No reaction, no control. Eventually they move on. Power hates frictionless resistance. It seeks easier targets. This is when respect replaces pressure. Not admiration, not love, respect. Respect is distance with recognition. It allows space. And space is where power lives. You also notice something internal. Silence strengthens clarity. When you speak less, you think better. When you react less, you see more. Noise drowns intuition. Stillness sharpens it. You start noticing patterns faster. Who aligns when nothing is promised? Who disappears when effort is required? Who speaks loudly about values and violates them quietly? Silence turns life into a live feed of truth. This is why silence feels lonely, because it removes participation from illusion. Most people bond through noise, complaints, drama, shared outrage. The silent man doesn't bond that way. He bonds through alignment. Alignment is rare, and rarity isolates. But isolation sharpens. This is the trade. Less noise, more truth, less approval, more control. The stage is uncomfortable for good men. Because they were taught to be warm, silence feels cold. But warmth without boundaries invites exploitation. Presence creates boundaries without hostility. Hostility creates enemies. Presence creates adjustment. People adjust to calm strength. They don't fight it. This is why silence and presence are dangerous. They don't announce power, they assume it. And assumptions guide behavior. The man who masters this phase stops being pulled into emotional games. He stops being rushed into bad decisions. He stops being guilted into self-betrayal. Not because he fights, because he doesn't engage. This is invisible power. And it sets the stage for the final test. Because once silence and presence work, the temptation appears. To use them without restraint. To manipulate, to withhold, to dominate quietly. This is where men are divided. Mastery or corruption. The final part decides which one you become. This is the moment most men never reach. They stop at awareness. They pause at discipline. They admire ethics, but never integrate them. The final step is subtle, invisible, almost impossible to see unless you're already awake. It is the question a man asks himself in the quietest moments. Can I use this power responsibly? Because power without ethics is destruction. It doesn't feel wrong at first. It feels effortless. Manipulation becomes tempting. Control becomes intoxicating. Influence becomes a game. And games reveal character. The disciplined man pauses here. He knows this is the knife's edge. Every action matters now. Every choice resonates. Because once you cross it, there's no undoing. Most men fail here. They confuse intelligence with superiority, awareness with entitlement, clarity with license. They see the world clearly and believe that gives permission to act however they want. It doesn't. It gives responsibility. True power is not domination, it's restraint. It is the quiet ability to act when necessary and do nothing when action would destroy more than it creates. This is ethical mastery. It is rare. It is uncomfortable. It isolates you from those who prefer chaos, from those who mistake noise for engagement, from those who worship immediate reward. Yet, it is also liberating, because once a man internalizes ethical power, he stops being controlled by the reactions of others. He stops being swayed by approval, fear, or desire. He moves according to principle, and principle does not negotiate. The man who masters this phase becomes unstoppable in subtle ways, not because he dominates, but because he cannot be manipulated. Others begin to reveal themselves in his presence. Opportunities align quietly. Influence comes without effort. The world behaves differently around him, not because he demands it, but because he no longer needs permission. He is calm in storms, unmoved by whispers, undistracted by chaos. The illusions that trap others fail to bind him, because he understands them. He sees them, and he moves through them. This is why good men often lose, not because they lack morality, not because they lack skill, not because they lack strength. They lose because they try to navigate the world as if goodness alone is enough. They trust stories, not mechanics. They give without assessment. They speak without strategy. They move without preparation. But the man who learns the dark mechanics of human nature and pairs it with discipline, ethics, and awareness, he is untouchable. He cannot be rushed. He cannot be deceived. He cannot be controlled. Power amplifies what exists in him, and if that power is anchored by ethics, it stabilizes rather than destroys. Most men never see this. They are content to react, to hope, to follow. They chase applause, attention, approval. They avoid loneliness. They avoid discipline. They avoid responsibility. But the awakened, disciplined, and ethical man chooses differently. He accepts discomfort. He accepts isolation. He accepts accountability. He acts strategically, not impulsively. He observes, does not overreact. He aligns, does not coerce. He influences, does not dominate. He protects, does not destroy. This is the ultimate transformation, from good to aware to disciplined to ethical to mastered. Few reach it, fewer sustain it. But once reached, life treats them differently. The world respects them without needing explanation. People reveal themselves without pressure. Opportunities emerge without force, because mastery is invisible but undeniable. And at this point, the man knows power is never about forcing. It is about becoming the man who cannot be controlled. And once that man exists, everything else falls into place. He has become rare. He has become unshakable. He has become undeniable. Closing reflection: good men are destroyed not because of weakness, but because of naivety. They trust morality without understanding mechanics. They act before observation. They speak before clarity. They give before they assess. Awareness without discipline, discipline without ethics, ethics without strategy, all fail when the world tests you. But the man who integrates all three becomes something few ever see, and even fewer can challenge. This is the cost. This is the path. And this is the ultimate warning. To be good is not enough. To survive, you must be aware, disciplined, and ethical. Only then can you move through the world unbroken.